Update. I downloaded all bank statements from January of 2023. Starting in May, it looks like he was on unemployment and then got a new job a few months later. Our cat of 10 years disappeared, so he was out looking for him. He came back and I confronted him, asking him where he worked. He told me the name of the new company. When I asked why he lied again, he said he didn't think it mattered. I'm pretty sure he got rid of my cat to distract me. Things are just great over here. My husband, 41 years old, and I, 34 years old, have our finances pretty separate. We each have our own accounts, and the only thing in both of our names is our house and his car. He makes about twice what I make, and we split expenses up in a way we both felt was fair and manageable for each of us, while both working on our own personal credit card debt we brought into the relationship. One of the things he covers is the mortgage in full. He works in accounting, and I work in education. I have never been great at managing my money, so he does my monthly budget for me and has access to all of my accounts and knows what my debts are. There has always been a veil of secrecy around his situation, but he has always assured me everything was fine on his end. Money was always tight, but he was always almost caught up. When I would ask specific questions, he would get defensive, and I felt it wasn't worth digging for more info, and took his word on things. Taking his word on things was pretty naive of me, considering our biggest issues in the past had revolved around him lying. When we first started dating, he told me he was taking classes towards his master's degree. I found out that he was actually in a bachelor's program when he had told me he had already had his bachelor's degree. When I confronted him, he apologized, told me he was embarrassed, and felt ashamed that I was more educated than he was at the time. I let it slide because he seemed genuinely apologetic, and I felt bad he was embarrassed. More recently, about a year after our son was born, I had mentioned that he smelled like cigarette smoke a few times, and he said, "That's weird." A few months later, I found a lighter and spray under the seat in one of our cars. He told me the lighter was in case the locks froze in winter, but didn't know what the spray was. A couple of months after that, I found a pack of cigarettes in his jacket pocket while I was looking for his keys, and he confessed to smoking the whole time. Then again, about a year ago, I was clued in that he might be having trouble when I had a notice for a late payment on my credit report. I checked immediately and saw he didn't make his car payment. When I asked him, he got defensive and stated that he has the account on autopay, and he doesn't know why they wouldn't have taken it out. I asked him to please call them to have it straightened out, as I didn't want the hit to my credit. And he was frustrated and said he would, but nothing came of it, and I let it go because the conversations were so unpleasant. I asked him to please tell me if he was struggling with the bills and his money situation, and he said it was all fine. Flash forward to a few days ago, I got a notice that we were behind on daycare payments. I asked him what was going on, why they were only getting partial payment. I could tell he was lying. He was immediately defensive, said he put in a form months ago for them to do automatic withdrawal from his account, but they never did. So while he was waiting, he would bring them however much the ATM would let me take out at a time in cash. I couldn't let this go, as I felt in my bones he was lying, and I asked him if things were okay and did he need help. Was the mortgage current? He said, yeah, it should be. Then I asked again and begged him to tell me the truth, and I found out he hadn't paid the mortgage in 11 months. He says he is sorry, he feels bad. He didn't know what to do. About a year ago, his health insurance costs increased dramatically, and he could no longer afford the mortgage. Instead of asking me to take on the insurance through my job or talking to me at all, he decided to just not pay it. I was pregnant at the time, so he didn't want to drop the insurance. He didn't tell me any of this because he didn't want to stress me out. He tells me about a week ago he applied for some kind of relief program, so waiting to hear back on that. If that isn't approved, we go into foreclosure. I keep talking about it. I feel betrayed and angry. He just says he's sorry, he doesn't know what else to say. He maintains he did it to protect me, but it certainly doesn't feel like it. Then he tells me he was just scared to tell me. I asked for full transparency and to see all of his accounts. And he was first angry and said, "So now I'm being babysat? That sucks." But later he reluctantly let me see his bank accounts. As far as I can tell, no gambling or drug addiction or anything crazy, just living beyond our means and an alarming amount of DoorDash charges. I always knew he would lie about things that weren't super important, but I thought he was an overall responsible, reasonable person. and I never in a million years would have imagined he would do something like this to our family. Is this something we could come back from? How big a deal is lying like this? I know we need counseling for the abysmal communication in the relationship, but the lying at the scale makes it hard to believe I'll be able to fully trust him again. Also, possibly homelessness, I'm sure, will place another strain on the relationship. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, your last paragraph blew my mind. You always knew he was a liar. Why did you think that it magically would only happen on things that don't matter, or that it wouldn't escalate? At this point, you have no idea what is real. Even when confronted, he will continue lying. So is this what you want for the rest of your life? If so, then stay. You have taught him that you will put up with it and won't leave him, so he will continue lying. And once in a while, he will get caught and do this dance where you get angry and fed up, and that's it. Maybe with enough individual and couple therapy, you two can get past this, plus maybe like 5 years of being his parole officer and having to parent him. To me, this would be a deal breaker, but congrats, you tied yourself to him. So go consult with a divorce attorney. Comment 2. Oh man, I was married to this exact type of guy for 18 years. You will always live your life waiting for the other shoe to drop. And it will drop. Just a matter of which lie is around the corner. You won't have retirement money because he will spend it and not tell you and lie about it until you have irrefutable proof he's lying. College funds, laughable. Get out now, for real. He won't change. This is your life forever if you don't leave. $0 financial security and a partner you cannot trust at all with anything. I am remarried now, and what a joy it is to have a spouse who is honest and trustworthy. That's what marriage should be. Now for the update. Thanks for sticking around for the latest. So, the past few days have been pretty hard on us. I thought things couldn't get worse, but life has a funny way of proving you wrong. After the whole mortgage fiasco, I was on edge waiting for the other shoe to drop, and drop it did. Just when I thought we were starting to get a handle on things, I found out my husband had been hiding more than just financial troubles. I was cleaning out the attic when I stumbled upon a box of letters. Love letters, not from me, but from someone named Angela. My heart sank. They were recent too, and the content was unmistakable. The betrayal stung like a slap in the face. I confronted him as soon as he got home. The look on his face told me everything I needed to know before he even opened his mouth. He tried to explain, to justify, but I wasn't having any of it. The lies were just too much. He begged for forgiveness, said it was a mistake, that he was lost and confused. But how could I trust anything he said now? In the midst of all this, our son's daycare called. They were sympathetic but firm. We needed to settle the outstanding payments or find alternative care. I was mortified. The daycare had been our son's second home, and the thought of pulling him out because of this mess was heartbreaking. I had to take action. I called my sister, who's always been the level-headed one, and she agreed to loan us the money to cover the daycare costs. She was disappointed in my husband, sure, but she knew our son shouldn't suffer for his father's mistakes. The next day, I took a personal day from work to sort things out. I went to the bank and transferred the loan from my sister to the daycare. I also opened a new account, one that my husband would have no access to. It was a small step towards independence, but it felt monumental. That evening, my husband came home early, and for the first time in a long time, we talked, really talked. He opened up about his insecurities, how he felt inadequate compared to me, and how that led him to make a series of poor decisions. He admitted that losing his job had been a massive blow to his ego, and he'd been too ashamed to tell me. I listened, but I didn't absolve him of his actions. I told him that trust was like a mirror. Once shattered, it could be put back together, but the cracks would always show. I wasn't sure if our marriage could survive this, but I was certain that things had to change. The following day, I received a call from the mortgage company. They had reviewed our case and offered a temporary relief program. It wasn't a permanent solution, but it bought us some time. I was relieved, but the relief was tinged with resentment. Why hadn't my husband sought help sooner? That night, as I lay in bed, I realized that the love I had for my husband was now mixed with a deep sense of distrust. I wondered if I could ever look at him the same way again. The man who had promised to be my partner in life had become a stranger to me. The next morning, I woke up to find my husband making breakfast. He had taken the day off to spend time with our son. something he rarely did. Watching them together, I saw the man I had fallen in love with, and it gave me a sliver of hope. As the day went on, my husband did something unexpected. He handed me his phone, unlocked, and told me he had nothing left to hide. He had canceled the credit cards, cut ties with Angela, and was ready to start fresh. He wanted to go to counseling, both for our marriage and for his own issues. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes. For the first time in a long time, I felt like we were on the same page. We were a long way from okay, but maybe, just maybe, we had a chance at rebuilding. Thanks for reading. Aita for wanting financial independence. From my husband who thinks he's the CFO of our marriage. My husband, a 28-year-old male, is upset that I, a 27-year-old female, want some financial independence. We've been together for 8 years, married for 2 years. Just to provide some background information, my husband previously had a steady income, but decided he wasn't enjoying his job and wanted to pursue entrepreneurship. I now provide 90% of the income. Prior to getting married, we both had separate bank accounts and split the bills 50-50. Once we got married, we decided to open a joint checking and savings account and keep our separate credit cards, which are then paid through our joint savings. My husband oversees our finances and lately has become obsessed with budgeting and predicting our spending habits. It's becoming an almost daily routine for him to log in and track how much is being spent on a daily basis. I think his obsession has been worsened due to the fact that he's not contributing much to our financial income. We recently got into an argument over the fact that I feel uncomfortable with him tracking every dollar that I'm spending. I don't have outrageous spending habits. I've cut back significantly on the things that I used to enjoy, such as getting my nails done, buying new clothes, and traveling. I don't mind having a joint savings account where he can monitor how much is coming in and out each month. But it bothers me when he asks if the lunch I had is a fraudulent charge or if I actually spent that. All I asked for was for him not to micromanage my credit card. I wanted one part of the finances to be independent from the micromanaging and was asking him not to log in and track every dollar being spent on my credit card. We have a budget set in place on how much we can spend, and I'm well within this budget, by the way. He just has to know what is being spent regardless if it's within budget. His response was that I was being secretive and he should be allowed to see and track everything that I'm spending. He says his intention is not to control how much I'm spending, but to try to have a better understanding. However, he still makes comments like, you spend an average of this each month on coffee. I feel like I should be able to buy a coffee without having to feel scrutinized over it, especially when I'm practically the sole provider. I let him know that I would prefer going back to our previous split accounts, where I'm not feeling parented, but of course the issue comes up on how bills will be split. Am I in the wrong? Should I be more supportive and allow him to have full control over our financial situation? Do you believe in having a separate credit card for discretionary spending if there's a set budget in place? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, he's not putting enough energy into his entrepreneurship if he has time for this nonsense. I would ask for an update on his business plan. My fear is that it's not going well. He's not good at it, and that's what's driving him to obsess over things he can do more easily, like review your finances. If entrepreneurship isn't working for him within a set deadline, he needs to find another job so he can contribute financially. And in the meantime, he can't fuss about the spending habits of the one partner that is working. Comment 2. Dude needs to let go a bit. It's clear he is worried too much about money. The reason is likely his employment situation. Not sure how to get him to realize this isn't a good habit. Money is supposed to help relieve stress, but for him it's causing stress. Now for the update. Thanks for sticking around to hear more about my life. So, things took a turn when my husband's friend, let's call him Mark, got into some serious trouble. Mark had been doing some shady business deals and it all caught up with him. He was arrested, and suddenly my husband was being questioned too, because they'd been working on some projects together. It was a mess. My husband was stressed, and I was worried about what this meant for us financially and legally. In the midst of all this, my husband became even more controlling over our finances. He said it was because we needed to be careful with every penny now that his name was being dragged through the mud. But it felt like he was using the situation as an excuse to tighten the grip on our spending. especially mine. Then, one day, I found out I was pregnant. It was unexpected, and with everything going on, it felt like the worst timing. But when I told my husband, he was over the moon. He saw it as a sign that things were going to get better for us. His whole demeanor changed, and for a while he stopped obsessing over our bank statements. But it didn't last long. The baby became his new reason for why we needed to save every dollar. He started questioning my purchases again, even the ones for the baby. It was like he couldn't help himself. One day, I came home to find him going through my personal credit card statement, which he knows is off limits. He confronted me about a charge from a maternity store. He couldn't understand why I'd spend so much on just clothes. I tried to explain that I needed them for my growing belly, but he just didn't get it. The final straw came when I found out he'd taken money out of our joint savings without telling me. He'd used it to bail Mark out of jail, believing his friend's story that it was all a big misunderstanding. I was furious. That money was supposed to be for our future, for our baby. I couldn't believe he'd risk it for someone who was clearly in the wrong. I told him I wanted to go back to separate accounts, that I couldn't trust him with our joint finances anymore. He apologized, said he'd been trying to protect us, but I could see in his eyes that he didn't really understand why I was so upset. He promised to be better, to keep me in the loop, but I knew it was only a matter of time before something else happened. And sure enough, it did. Mark's case went to trial, and it was revealed that my husband had unknowingly been involved in some of the illegal activities. He was cleared of any wrongdoing, but the damage to his reputation was done. People we knew started looking at us differently, whispering behind our backs. It was humiliating. Through all of this, my husband remained oblivious to how his actions were affecting our relationship. He was so caught up in trying to fix things with Mark and clear his own name that he didn't see how isolated I felt. I was carrying our child, dealing with the stress of his legal troubles, and still, he was questioning my every purchase. I wanted to leave to take a break from all the chaos, but I couldn't. I was too far along in my pregnancy, and despite everything, I still loved him. I hoped that once the baby arrived, things would change, that he'd finally see what was really important. But as I sit here, recounting the past few months, I realize that might just be wishful thinking. He's promised to change before, and here we are, stuck in the same cycle. I'm not sure what the future holds for us, but for now, I'm here, trying to make the best of a tough situation. Thanks for reading. Thank Aita for staying with my partner. After discovering they were using and dealing drugs, I'm convinced my 33-year-old male significant other, 28 years old, is using drugs. When we started hanging out, she mentioned that her family are tweakers, cokeheads. Two close friends of hers, the only two I've ever really seen come around, are really strung out on drugs. One of them is even a dealer, which my significant other confided in me, while adding that she was only doing so to save up to get away from her extremely hurtful drugs-dealing boyfriend. She's sworn she doesn't use, and never has because she's an alcoholic, who doesn't drink anymore, and knows she'd get strung out and ruin her life. Here's the thing. I found tinfoil with burnt stuff on it, here and there in the trash. She made a comment once, and I quote, "There's really bad drugs around right now." So I heard what I could swear was tinfoil crinkling while she was in the bathroom for extended periods of time. Walked in on her holding a roll of tinfoil in her room, walked into the kitchen, and saw her with a piece of tinfoil in her hand. Then one night I threw something away in a trash bag in her bedroom and saw a bunch of tinfoil with burnt residue on them and an empty baggie with what appeared to be drugs residue in it. I resolved to confront her, but I wanted to wait until I wasn't so angry, so I just went to bed. The next morning I woke up after she had gone to work and went to the bathroom. Sure enough, there were two baggies, one with residue and one with a little drug still in it. I could no longer stay silent after that. I confronted her and she denied all of it and blamed it on her friend and said she'd stopped by before she left for work. She then got super defensive about it and we drove to get a UA from Walgreens. She used the bathroom there, so I could not see her pee into it. It looked suspiciously clear, as if it had been watered down. It came back negative on everything. She then called her friend and her friend admitted to the baggies in the bathroom and to throwing tinfoil away in the bathroom. This whole call seemed very suspicious and set up. To top it off, I never mentioned which garbage I found the tinfoils in. I told her I didn't find the tinfoils in the bathroom, and she said her friend probably forgot where she threw them out because she's a tweaker. She said she was hurt that I thought she was a tweaker. I told her that I actually thought she was smoking opioids, probably pills, because of her behavior. And she had gotten into a serious car accident a couple of years before we met. She said she had tinfoil around because her daughter wanted to do TikTok challenges that involved it. I really care about her, so I decided to give her the benefit of the doubt in the moment. Later on, I asked her why she's still got these people around if she's not using. And she said she was really close to them before they started using, and she didn't want to abandon them. She said she'd cut off contact if I wanted her to, and that she'd care enough about me to do that. I told her she needed to do it for herself and for her friends, because you have to let people hit rock bottom and hope that would help them to get to a point where they'd want to get clean again for themselves. They haven't been around since, and I haven't seen or heard her communicate with them since. For a while after that, everything seemed okay. Yesterday, she pulled out folded tinfoil from her small Adidas bag and made a joke about it and showed me that she keeps makeup in it when she doesn't have room to carry all her makeup. I was not amused by this at all. Then, later that night, I left to take my dog for a walk, and she called me to ask how long until I'd be back. I told her it would be a little while. During this call, she seemed different than when I had left. She seemed like she was high on opioids. When I got back, she had a black smudge on her face. I pointed it out and wiped her face for her. She said nothing about it and went back to making a milkshake. The smudge is a telltale sign of smoking off of tinfoil. I know this because my mom was a heroin addict for 5 years, and I'd seen it hundreds of times. When we went to bed, she was noticeably irritated, pissed off. My initial inclination is to confront her about it, but I'm unsure if I should do it now or should I wait and gather more evidence first. I really care about her and want to make it work and help her. Am I just being paranoid? If not, how should I proceed from here? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. If someone has drug paraphernalia around, their behavior changes quickly, and they have other drugged-up friends around. They probably are on drugs themselves. Run. Peas, I was with an alcoholic for far too long. The best thing to do is to fold early. I didn't, and suffered. Comment 2. She has a daughter? Does this child live with you? I ask this because as someone in the field, it's so obvious she is using drugs. If there's a child in the picture, and she has custody of the child, that's a big problem, my dude, and you should call CPS. Now for the update. Thanks for the comments on my last post. So I decided to wait and gather more evidence before confronting her again. I didn't have to wait long. The next day, I found a lighter and a spoon under the couch. The spoon had burn marks on the bottom. It was like a punch in the gut. I remembered her saying she'd never use because she knew she'd get hooked. But there it was, right in front of me. I didn't say anything right away. Instead, I watched her. She was acting more and more distant, disappearing into the bathroom for long stretches, always with some excuse. Her mood swings were busy. 1 minute she was up, the next she was snapping at me for the smallest things. Then, 2 days ago, her ex, the hurtful drugs dealer, showed up. He was yelling outside our place, demanding to see her. She told me to stay inside, that she'd handle it. I watched from the window as they argued. She was giving him money. Where did she get that kind of cash? He left, but not before he shot me a nasty look. That night, she was all apologies, said he was threatening to hurt her friends if she didn't pay up. She was crying, saying she felt trapped. I wanted to believe her, to think that this was all just a bad situation she got caught up in. But then, I found more tinfoil in the trash. This time I confronted her. She broke down, admitted she'd been using again. Said it started as a one-time thing to deal with the pain from her car accident. But she couldn't stop. She begged me not to leave her, promised she'd get clean. I was torn. Part of me was furious, felt betrayed. But another part of me, the part that remembered my mom's struggle with addiction, felt empathy. I told her I'd stay, but only if she got professional help. She agreed. We found a rehab center and she's checking in tomorrow. I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing. I feel weak, like I'm letting her walk all over me, but I can't just abandon her. I know what it's like to watch someone you love fight addiction. Last night, after we'd sorted everything out, her phone buzzed. It was a text from her dealer friend, the one she'd cut off. The message was clear. She owed money. A lot of it. She hadn't just been using, she'd been dealing to support her habit. I was shocked. It was like I didn't even know her. But she was scared, and I couldn't just turn my back on her. We spent the night figuring out how to deal with the debt. I ended up paying it off. It drained my savings, but it was the only way to keep her safe. Today, she's packing her bags for rehab. I'm trying to be supportive, but I can't shake the feeling that I've been played. Still, I'm holding on to hope that this is the first step towards something better. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.